Victor Wembanyama is an alien. Less than 100 games into his career, 20-year-old Wemby is already a top 10 player in the league. He's the best defender, yes, even better than Rudy, and an elite, efficient 25-point-per-game scorer, and one of the best playmakers as a big. San Antonio is in contention for the playoffs, and Wemby's on the NBA's MVP ladder, but Wemby's rapid development is somehow going under the radar. So let me explain how Wembanyama is already better than you think. After a rough start to the season, Vic is already averaging 24.5 a game, 18th in the league, and more than players like Donovan Mitchell, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Ja Morant, and Jaylen Brown. But maybe even more impressively is how he's doing it. Remember, at the start of the season, all the hate tweets and takes about how Wemby's shot diet is holding him back. Well, his true shooting is up to 60.1%, 2.7% higher than league average, and better than Tatum, Luka, Spida, Braun, and Harden. Despite being 7'3" without shoes, Wemby has made 69 threes, more than Anthony Simons, Cat, MPJ, Laurie, and even spot-up shooters Sam Hauser and Kevin Huerter, all while over a quarter of those attempts are coming off the dribble, one of the least efficient shots in basketball. He's leading centers in threes made and is on pace for 210 total, which would destroy the current record for threes made by a center. Wemby is also well on his way to winning a back-to-back block title, averaging 3.5 a game, with nobody even close in average blocks, and despite missing a handful of games, still dominating in total blocks, with 20 more than second place Walker Kessler. The gap between 2nd and 10th is also 20. All around defensively, Wemby has become the best defender in the league and will rightfully win DPOY, something that seems set in stone since the offseason, as even last year he took 19 first place votes. Now he's a minus 250 favorite, a 71.43% chance. Wemby's mobility is something we have never seen from anyone at that size, as he's able to cover anyone, anywhere, and if you need one person to start a defense with, you're choosing Victor Wembanyama. He can keep up with smaller guards, and even when he gets beat, his 8-foot wingspan can block or at the very least affect any shot. And even with defenses adjusting and not going at, even avoiding Wemby, he's still garnering nearly as many blocks as last season. He has the potential to be one of the greatest defensive players to ever touch a basketball, something we'll talk about more later, and the extra 10 to 15 pounds on over the offseason is doing nothing but helping his defensive prowess. San Antonio is also legit. This team sits at 14-13, the first time above 500 after the first 10 games since 2021. They've been battling recently and won 8 of their last 13, just half a game back of the 8th seed. And though they probably won't make the playoffs, and even if they do, they will get bounced early, this is a huge jump from a team that last year looked like they were very far away. Stephon Castle is a complete hit of a draft pick, and Jeremy Sohan is having a career year. Though they are still a second star away from competing, the young supporting cast of Castle, Vassell, Keldon, Sohan, and Champagnie is very encouraging, and the addition of Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes have helped these guys out a lot. But just how fast is Wemby progressing, as it seems like he went from a raw rookie to legit superstar within a matter of 12 months. Well, I took the average game score from each third of his 1 1/3 season so far, and game score basically takes all the counting stats to measure a player's performance, with 10 being an average game. Well, his first third to start his career was a 14.9 average, before quickly progressing to 19.2 over the next third. Well, the last two will shock you, 21.6 and 20.5. But to show you how much he's even progressing just this season, let's look at his first 10 games, where he averaged 18.3, 10.2, 2.4 assists, and a 15.3 game score, to his last 12, averaging 29 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks, with a game score of 24.8. By far the best stretch of his career, as the second best 12-game stretch of his is an average of 25 points and 22.3 game score. Since November 8th, Wemby has scored less than 20 just once, someone that was barely averaging 20 last year and wasn't across the first 10 games of the season. He's getting better by the day. Since that date, Wemby's 5th in points, trailing just Giannis, Jokic, Shea, and LaMelo. Yes, he's scoring more than Luka, Tatum, KD, and Book. He's 20 years old. He's averaging the 54th most assists in that stretch at 4.8, and more than D. Mitch, Conley, and Ant. He's 20 years old. He's making the 3rd most average threes at 4.2 in that stretch, more than Hero, Dame, Harden, Book, and Stephen Curry. He's 20 years old. This shouldn't be possible. His averages of 29.6 points, 10 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 3.1 blocks, and 4.3 threes have expectedly never been done over a 12-game stretch, like what's currently happening. But what's crazier is that nobody has even done it across 2 games. What Wemby has done for the past month is something that not one single player in the entire history of the NBA has ever done across a 2-game stretch. He's historically good. Don't let people convince you otherwise. And Wemby's entire season so far is completely unprecedented from someone this young. Wemby's current PER of 24.6 ranks 13th all-time among players in their first or second year. A historic season, and even his rookie year is inside the top 25. Somehow this might not even be indicative of how good he is. When looking at box plus minus, he jumps to 9th, only being beaten by all-time greats, who are pretty much MVP candidates by their second seasons. Even Wemby's rookie year is 15th on the list. Here's the top 20 players in combined points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks per game in a season before they turn 22. This year, Wemby ranks 9th. The year prior, he was 15th again. If we only count his last 12 games averages, he skyrockets to first on this list, even above Shaq, Luka, and LeBron. Just 13 players have ever scored 24.5 a game before the age of 22, and only 3 have done that with 10 rebounds. Those being Shaq, one of the greatest players ever, Rick Barry, a Hall of Famer, but he did this pre-merger, and Karl Anthony Towns, who was once on a historic pace as a young big, but was never close to the level of defense that Wemby has. There's only 2 players to average 24.5 points and 3 threes made by a player 21 or younger, Trae Young and Wemby. Wemby's quite literally doing things that only Shaq has done, and also only things that Trae Young has done. That just doesn't make sense. He's the youngest player to score 50 while making 8 threes, and is also the youngest with 50 and 3 blocks. Overall, he was the 4th youngest to ever score 50, and one of 5 to do this before turning 21. Who is even better than him right now? Like, he might be a top 5 or 10 player. Currently, Jokic, Giannis, Luka, Shea, and Tatum are all definitively better in my opinion. And I would still have Curry, KD, Embiid, and AD higher. But aside from that, I don't think anyone else is better, including players like Ant, Brunson, JB, LeBron, and Spida. And even in that group of 4 I mentioned, there is a case for Wemby to be better than all of them. And if you don't want to rank Vic higher yet, I can understand. He's still so young with so much to prove, but what we have seen this season and recently is for real. I mean, this dude is 8th on the NBA's MVP ladder. This dude can score from anywhere, but he is 7'3" and already one of the best big man shooters we have ever seen. Just imagine how much of a better scorer he will be when he ups his percentages inside. We could see a 30-point or even more player in Wemby, and his playmaking is really legit. He can make the right read, create for others, and we have seen him throw lobs. Defensively, we know how good Wemby is, but he's well on his way to becoming one of the greatest defenders ever, and we can get into uncomfortable conversations when talking about a combination of both. Very few players have ever been the best in the world on both sides of the ball. Only MJ, LeBron, Kareem, and Hakeem actually have real cases, and that is a real scenario that Wemby might be in a few years. He's unstoppable on defense and dropping 30 a night at 7'3". If there was one player created to destroy the GOAT debate, it is Victor Wembanyama, and within the next few years, he will be the best player in the world.